guests on the Rolodex, stopping by to talk about some dynasty superflex. Everybody, yo, commish is in. It's time to sit down to listen to John McGlynn. Yo, who we trading, who we fading, who we getting off the squad. Knowledge never overrated, playing for number one. Hey, yo, McGlynn is in. It's time to let the fun begin. It's the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with John McGlynn.
That excellent intro was brought to you by the famous Herms from Herms NFL. Guy's awesome, does some nice work. Super happy with that intro. It makes everybody laugh. My wife laughs at me, but she laughs at me about everything. So it is what it is. Anyway, welcome to the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast. I'm John McGlynn. You can find me on the Twitter machine at John McGlynn75. Today I had the pleasure of talking with Alex Caruso. Today we'll talk to Alex about everything I've been involved in starting a new dynasty league, jump into some commissioner questions, some settings he prefers to play in, stuff like that. For me, I worked 72 hours the last 6 days, so it might be a little foggy today. I just excited to have Alex on. I had 3 fantasy football draft lotteries yesterday at the local. We used to call it dispensary, but now I will call it bar now for the dispensary's got a whole new meaning nowadays. But we have a draft lottery set up. I got a bingo ball machine. People showed up. The guys who have the 101, the 106 jump in. And you get 42 balls for if you have the worst max points for. And it's like a basketball type lottery system. So actually in 2 of the leagues, the guy who had the least amount of balls from balls 1 to 5 ended up getting the 101, which was weird because the guy who's got people, you can tank all you want to in these leagues, but you're not guaranteed anything because of the fact that it's a draft lottery. So the guy who actually in two of the 3 leagues we did, the people with the smallest amount of numbers end up getting the 101, and the people who had the most amount end up getting the 106 in two leagues also. So it's it's funny the way that works sometimes, but it's awesome the way these leagues are set up, and we all voted on it, and it makes such an interesting wrinkle into the end of the league or off your events kind of thing. It just it is what it is, and I love doing it. I got 4 more leagues to do like draft lotteries in. 4 more excuses to go to a bar somewhere with my buddies and drink some beers and shit like that. So, and I spent last night with JT. JT, what'd you do all weekend?
I had a conference. I'm on a board of a hospital, and we had a conference up in Wisconsin. So spent all day in meetings doing that fun stuff about talking about what we're going to do for the next 3 years on this board. But then I got to come hang out with you last night. We got to mix it up, so that was good. And, nice little finish of the weekend.
It was a nice finish to the weekend, especially since my wife drove us home, or me home anyway, and came home and watched one of our shows with some chicken nuggets and went to bed. And she probably put me to bed after that. So it was a nice day. It was a great day, but 12-hour, 15-hour days. So, Alex, how about yourself? How did your weekend go?
My weekend was great. I worked Friday night at a restaurant I work at right around where I live in Boston. And then Saturday, one of my friends was visiting from Arizona. So, he was visiting, showed him around the town. We ended up going out to a couple good bars on Friday. And then yesterday on Sunday, I had hot pot for the first time. I've never had Chinese hot pot before. And that was my first experience.
What is hot pot?
Hot pot is it's where everyone's surrounded the table. It's similar to hibachi, where it's all centered around one thing at the table. And we get it's like a boiling pot of soup. And you order whatever you want between meats, vegetables, anything you can think of. And then you pour it into this boiling pot of soup and then take it out yourself. So it's all do it yourself, kind of like Chinese food around a really good flavored soup in this giant pot that sits in the middle of everyone that's there. I've never experienced anything like it, but it was a blast. And I like foods from literally anywhere. So it was quite the experience, but I loved it.
That's awesome. I've never had that before. Hello, Toronto Dave. Thanks for jumping in our show today. There's tons of hot pot places here. I haven't been though.
Highly recommend.
I've been we've been to 43 states. Me and my wife and kids. My wife 4 kids. We go all over the place for lacrosse tournaments or basketball or football, whatever it may bring us, or just family vacations. Me and my wife works at Cook County Jail. She got a lot of vacation time. I got a job where I got a lot of vacation time with a weird schedule. So we make the most of it, So we went to Boston a couple years ago for a wedding, actually, and we did the Red Stripe Trail. We did Old Ironsides. We went it was awesome. I love Boston, man. It was an awesome town.
It's a great city to be in. I've been here for four years now, and like I could not be happier being in Boston. There's like no better place, but I think Chicago is probably the next destination that I'll move to. Everyone I've ever talked to that said it's an amazing place to live, that's probably where I'm headed next. Whenever Boston, wears its welcome.
You see a lot of bad news on the news about Chicago and how bad it is with crime and blah
Yeah,
blah, all that stuff. I think it's one of those things where the media blows things out of proportion so much. It's such a great time here on a sunny like a sunny Sunday afternoon. If you have the whole weekend to do a White Sox game and then see the local bars in downtown, go see the Grant Park, go see the Bean, go see Sears Tower, go see all the things you do downtown. The touristy stuff. It's awesome. Then if you got a nice day to go to Wrigleyville and watch a Cubs game, and I'm not a Cubs fan, I'm a White Sox fan, so if you go to a Cubs game and then hit the bars after, Wrigleyville it's a single man's paradise. It's probably it's company outings, it's young women, just having a great time. It's young people just having a great time. It's not really a family friendly park, but it's a great park where you and your buddies want to go out for like a lot of bachelorette parties, a lot of bachelor parties, a lot of things like that go on there. And there's a place called the Old Crow. Out of all the places that are in Wrigleyville, the Old Crow, it's a retractable roof. I was in Tennessee for the NFL draft with Mike Teglier and Fantasy Pros and those guys a couple years ago, and that place reminds me of being in Tennessee. The roof retracts. You can see this. The sun's beating on you. It's moonshine whiskey. It's beers. There's peanut shells over the floor. There's they got food going on. The girls are dressed like they're like Daisy Dukes and stuff like that. It is an awesome experience, and you can go bar hopping all over the place around there and just take a cab home wherever you're going, wherever hotel you're at. But there is the area around Wrigleyville is fantastic. I can't compare it. I love Comiskey Park. It's like a high school reunion every time you go to a game and meet your buddies, bring your kids there. It's a family atmosphere at Comiskey Park, or whatever they call it now, Guaranteed Rate Field or some stupid name like that. But I always call it Comiskey. But Wrigley Field itself is so much of a better. It's so much of a better like party place. But I'll always be a Comiskey Park guy. So
I love that.
People say Toronto is similar to Chicago. I've heard that before myself also. It's I've only been to Canada. I've only invaded Canada twice, and it's one to see Niagara Falls with the family, and then once for a bachelor party in right over the border somewhere, right on the other side of Michigan. I forgot the name of the city.
Windsor. Windsor's right across from Detroit.
You don't have dollar bills at the strip club. You throw coins on the stage, but for the girls, it's like, what the hell's going on here? It's a weird experience, but let's see. So I saw a White Sox game in Chicago a long time ago. Absolutely. Did they win? I hope. It's fantastic. But so first of all, Alex, tell me about yourself, where the Twitter machine could find you, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all that kind of stuff, and what makes people follow you on the fantasy football world.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Alex Caruso, just as straight up as the name, no spaces, underscores, numbers, anything like that. And I'm on TikTok at Alex Caruso NFL. But people follow me, for there's not a lot of shit posting that goes on. It is pretty much all just, content. I'm always trying to tweet out the best stats, information, anything else that I can find. Right now, it's probably not the greatest time to follow me because it's, kind of settling down into the off season. There's not a ton of content coming out as much right now. But ultimately, when things start getting kicked back off in March, April, May, and all the way leading up to the season, I'm tweeting out the most helpful stats that I can possibly find in all my show sheets every single day. And I think that's why that I've been able to grow a lot in the last few months. I just noticed that you have a lot of followers all of a sudden. Like, tell me about a day in the life of one Alex Caruso. What's going on outside the fantasy? When you come home and grind fantasy football for a little bit, what do you do outside of that? What's your hobbies? What you work at? All that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's honestly probably not the most exciting for a 22-year-old kid in college. So most of it is if I'm in school. So a lot of my day, generally during the day is I'm either in school or I'm doing fantasy content or I'm hanging out with my friends. That's really the three big things that you'll find me doing most days. If I'm not visiting family at home, I'm probably hanging out with my friends, whether we're going out to a bar or we're just playing poker on a Thursday night. It's usually something like that. But a lot of my time just goes around to either like working at the restaurant I work at, fantasy football, and in school. I'm really kind of boring. So
boring is good. JT, you were just talking about being in a poker league last night, weren't you?
Yes, how I finished dead last in my poker league the last time I played in a poker league because I'm not very good at poker. I tended to go and hang out just because the boys were there and something good to do on a Sunday night. But I'm not a good poker player. That's for sure. I just gave my money away basically.
Right. That's what happens sometimes. Your volume's a little bit low, JT. You got to turn it up a little bit, or I don't know where your mic's at, but all right. He's in a different room because we were echoing earlier. JT's. So I don't know if we were at a bar last night. I had a couple bingo, rookie league bingo things going on, draft lottery kind of bingo games. And JT was at a conference in Wisconsin, like you said. So we met up, and it ended up being a pretty long night. So JT ended up doing the show from my house instead of his house, which is 2.5 hours away. But so we were trying to do it on the same screen together with different logins and stuff. But he ended up echoing all over the place. So it was a new experiment. So now he's relegated to my kitchen right now doing the show with my dogs.
Yeah. So yeah, they're like staring at me, wondering like who's this strange guy just sitting in the kitchen for no reason at all. It's pretty funny.
So speaking of that, like Alex, I got a wife, 4 kids, 4 dogs, a full-time job, a lot of overtime, rotating 12-hour shifts. I got 19 leagues to set. Like, how do you do all this content and stuff and still manage? And how many leagues are you in, first of all, like that kind of stuff? How many leagues do you play in? How many leagues are you best ball guy only? That kind of stuff. Like, how do you manage your time?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely tough to manage time. You are probably busier than even I am with all the stuff that you have going on with 4 kids and 12-hour shifts and all that. But I think for me, it's just like I said, that I'm boring, and I think a lot of that becomes that a lot of my old like hobbies, whether it was like watching more TV shows or going out and doing this or that, like a lot of that free time I have just kind of got devoted to fantasy football. So I mean, budgeting my time just became as simple as like if I'm not working or I'm not in school or I don't have anything that like I have to be at, what I wanted to be doing is creating content, because like that's really what I enjoy to be doing. And I think it just became a lot about that yes, it is hard to budget time, and there are a lot of late nights when you have to finish a Twitter thread or finish editing a video or whatever it possibly could be. But ultimately it just became like, how much do you want to do this? And it just became that more of the free time I had, I just chose to make content. But as for leagues, I played in about 20 leagues this year. The majority of what I play are like public, like auction leagues, like keep it pretty straight and simple so I can play in a lot of leagues, but not have to worry about a lot of things. I think I'm in about 3 or 4 dynasty leagues, and I have like 2 or 3 home redraft leagues. But most of where I play is like Yahoo auction leagues. It's my favorite leagues to play. They're fun. They're pretty easy to keep track of. And I think that I really enjoy those. But I think where my heart really is ultimately the home leagues that you play with your friends. I have 2 home leagues. That is one with my high school friends on ESPN. And my number one favorite league is on this site called Real Time Sports with my dad. He's been in the league for 25 years now. It's probably the oldest site on the planet, probably besides MFL. But we play together. We've co-run a team for the last 6 years. And as someone that's like in school and doesn't live close to home anymore, it's like the perfect way to keep in contact with my dad. So leagues like that is why I play fantasy football and why I love it so much.
That's fantastic. My dad did not, he couldn't care one if the Bears were on or if the Bulls were on or nothing. He's not really a sports guy. He was always he always tried to coach us and stuff, but never really, he just worked a couple jobs, just kind of make sure we were in the Catholic school, tuition was paid and that kind of stuff. But he was always there, always trying to help out our teams and stuff like that. But he was never really a sports fan. Never. If I asked him to join my fantasy football league, he'd just grab me by the head and throw me out the front door, that kind of stuff. So. But that's awesome that you get to keep in touch with your dad like that. That's stuff like that is kind of, I'm a little jealous that me and my dad don't have that like sports relationship kind of thing, because I spend way too much time doing this stuff. He'd probably tell me to go get a second job instead of playing fantasy football.
It really is a second job though.
Yeah. I've been doing this since like 1996. It's longer than you've been around probably. So it's been a while, but the biggest problem I have is the technical situation where I barely know how to use this StreamYard and stuff. I could talk fantasy football forever, but it's almost like if I told you, hey, I'll go wire my house right now. Like, you be an electrician. That's what I do for a living. I could wire my entire house in probably 2 days, pipe it, wire it, trim it, the whole stuff like that. But you grew up with computers. you know how to do this stuff with like the back of your hand. You could do StreamYards and TikToks in 10 minutes, where it would take me 4 hours to do like a simple, stupid TikTok, right now, or a stupid, you know, I don't know how to write. I had typing in high school. We didn't even have computers when I was in high school. I had typing class with an actual typewriter. So that's how old I am. But I just feel like if I was born like around your age, where I was so comfortable with computers and comfortable with all this technology and stuff like that, my life would be so much easier or better as far as the equip goes. But I'm ill-equipped to. I'm catching up. I'm learning how to do Google Sheets. I'm learning how to do those kind of things. But I'm way behind the 8 ball and that kind of stuff. And I had 4 kids, and I worked for I had a full-time job. I coach all my kids' sports and shit like that. So I'm really actually starting to get in this podcast thing and this fantasy football stuff now that excuse me, that my kids are a little bit older. So I'm a little behind the 8 ball. Being a 22-year-old and jumping right in, right in the water head first. I'm super. That makes me happy to see you guys living your dreams out at an early age. You have no idea when I see you or the handful of other young kids on these. Let's see, young kids are 22. You're a young man, but these young people jumping on here already living their dreams when they're 16, 18, 21 years old. It makes me. You have no idea how happy it's. You're like, I wish I was in your spot right now doing what you're doing, but I'm super happy that you're doing it. So.
I appreciate that. No, that means a lot. It's crazy to see the youth movement, dare I say, with like some of these stuff, but it's cool to see, and it's fun to be a part of and getting to learn from people that have been doing it for a long time. But yeah, we got a lot more to do. And like, again, I don't have kids or anything like that I have to worry about. So now is the time to try to chase the dream before you have kids, like you said, and you don't have the time or means to be able to take the time to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I could teach you how to make a lot of bad trades and stuff, but that's about all I can show you right now. So we kind of already touched about playing fantasy football. You redraft or dynasty guy. What do you prefer? Do you prefer redraft leagues that are just nice and simple, or do you prefer being in the dynasty leagues all year round stuff? And do you have like which one do you really? If they said gun to your head, they said, hey, pick one. Which one would you pick?
I think I would have to say this is probably the most boring answer, but I'd have to say redraft. I really just enjoy redraft leagues with my friends because that's usually where I end up playing with the people I'm the closest with. Like I play in some other like more competitive like dynasty leagues and places like that, but like there's no better way to play fantasy football than just like with the people I know, with friends, where we can talk crap about each other's teams every year and people can reset. They're not intimidated by the analyst thing that's sitting next to my name and it resets every year, even though it doesn't mean that much. But ultimately, I think redraft leagues are where my heart is. But I know that I know for yourself, there's no way that redraft is probably your favorite kind of league.
Not even close. It used to be the redraft was. I remember the days when I think we had our first couple of redraft leagues was neighborhood leagues, and you'd call in a lineup, but there was no Thursday night game, so you call a lineup on Sunday morning before the Sunday game started. And there was a Monday night game, and that was it. So you had to have your entire lineup called in on a phone on Sunday afternoon. Like, so you had to call, and like the commissioner had to answer the phone, or there was no voicemail, there was no call waiting, there was nothing. Like you just got the and busy signal because everybody's trying to wait to the last minute to call the commissioner. So you had to jump in your car with a sheet of paper with all your lineup on there and drive it to the commissioner's house before noon, or you got a 0 for all your games. You couldn't call in late, and there was no such thing as a waiver wire, like or injury. If your guy was hurt on Sunday afternoon, the Sunday night game, you got a 0 because that guy was hurt. Like you couldn't call in and change your lineup or shit like that. It was like you were effed. It is what it is. So it was people would call on purpose and just keep calling after they got the lineup in. They just call the commissioner, just keeping the line busy the whole time. So you couldn't call your lineup in. So people got 0s that way. You get home from church at like 11:30, 11:40, and you're like, try to call and the phone's busy. You're like, I'm not taking this chance. I'm just write your lineup in, go to the commissioner's house, and that was the way it was. It was fun.
Dude, that's dirty, John. You guys just keep calling. Just keep calling to keep the line busy. That's pretty hilarious.
You play to win the game. That's what it's all about.
By any means necessary.
Any means necessary is correct. So what's your favorite part of this whole fantasy football experience? Like playing like redraft or DFS, best ball, Debbie, you don't any campus camp leagues, like podcasting, writing, something else? Like what's your favorite part of this whole? I see you're all over the place on like every social media thing. So what's your favorite part of this whole thing?
Oh man, I I think that like for me, it's creating content that I can put in front of a lot of people. Like I think that I'm someone that like never thought I should ever be in front of a camera or behind a microphone. Like I would have voted myself as like last person that should ever be doing that, a few years ago before I started doing something like this. So like I think to me, like it means a lot more than it probably would to the average person to see any number of people, whether it's 10 people that are tuning in or 1,000 or 100,000, like whatever it is, like just seeing that there's actual like human beings that like are taking time out of their day to like read or listen to something that I'm putting out and I like worked hard to like do, that means more to me than anything. So I think that I'm consistently always amazed of whenever there's new followers or new views or like, new milestones or records to hit on different things. Like it just becomes like the craziest thing. Like the perfect example was I made like, it was last year, like I'd probably made over 400 or 500 TikTok videos on TikTok, and they were all football related. But when March Madness came around, I was like, okay, why don't I try making one March Madness video just to change it up? Like everybody loves March Madness. And I got like it was my first video that hit 1 million views, was my first non-football video. But it was like one of those things that like getting 1 million people to look at something was like the craziest thing. And I was just jumping around like a psychopath probably for that entire day. But just seeing people tuning into something that I created is just like the coolest thing in the world to me. And it'll never not be cool. And I think it's so motivating to continue to try to do more, to hit new milestones, break new records. And I think it's inspiring that people tune in, whether they love it or they hate it. Just seeing the numbers of people that are like consuming it in some way, shape, or form, I think means a lot to me.
1 million views out. I mean, that's so. I mean, yeah, you just run around the house, pour milk on yourself, and like celebrate, like kind of thing. Like, I mean,
yeah. It was my poor dad that I was probably blowing up his phone every 10 minutes that I just got another 50,000 views or whatever it was, because it went from like 0 to 1 million in a matter of like 3 or 4 hours. And like I was just every time, like I'd never had over like 500,000 on a video. So like when it was going up so quickly, I just couldn't believe it. So I was probably blowing up my poor dad's phone every 5 minutes with the new view count or whatever it was. And he was probably sick of me at that point. But that was one of those things that was like an out-of-body experience that even if it's 100,000 or 1,000, like it doesn't feel real that many people would tune into anything. And I think that's the biggest thing.
That's awesome, man. I love hearing it. I get like 12. So it'll be a while before I catch up to the million mark, and it'll have to be something about pizza or like cheeseburgers or something like that gets me to that point. That's
but that like it's off that point though. It's like that's the crazy thing is like when I first started, like my first podcast episode got like 5 views, and to me it was the coolest thing in the entire world that 5 people took time out of their day to like listen to my podcast, even though it was probably my mom, my dad, my grandma, my friend, and someone else who probably accidentally clicked on it. It was one of those things that like, no matter how it is, just the fact that people tune in to take time out of their day is just like the coolest thing.
That is, I'm looking at comments from Toronto Dave here, and I met him in person. I guys on everybody's podcast. He's on everybody's show. He's always saying nice things about everybody all the time. And like seeing that guys like Toronto Dave come on here and like take the time to make comments or watch my show or do stuff like that. First of all, the guy's a dime. And second of all, for him to come on and like make comments and just listen, to take the time out of his day, his busy day, to listen to me yak about fantasy football or about starting a league with you and JT and stuff here. Thanks, Toronto Dave. You're one of the good ones, man.
Absolutely. He's tuned into so many of my shows as well. He's been a huge supporter of mine since day one. I think he was one of my first couple hundred followers, and he has been so huge for me and tuning into my shows. Like people like that, you don't ever forget. So you're right, Toronto Dave, a dime, a real one, and a great guy in person.
Stud muffin, Dave.
Absolutely.
Oh man. So what's your favorite host site for fantasy football? Like I had the luxury in the past of setting lineups on Sleeper, MFL, ESPN, Yahoo, Free Flicker, NFL, CBS. Like I was going like place to place, setting lineups in all these leagues. I pretty much got all my shit streamlined now to just Sleeper. It's my favorite site. It's like ESPN that was thought about, but it's not as good as for settings wise as MFL is. But which one is your favorite? It sounds like you're a Yahoo kind of guy, but what's your favorite host site?
Yeah, well, I think I'm biased I'm going to say Yahoo because like I said that it was the easiest for me. Sleeper has recently changed around what they did, but Yahoo is my favorite because when I was playing in like 14 or 15 leagues on Yahoo, they have a button where if you click on the player, you can show what availability they have in each league. So like if I was going to add like, Samaje Perine off waivers, it would show me exactly what leagues he's in. So I didn't have to go through each one and, search the depths of the waiver wire to see if he was available. And that saved me so much time. And that was the first site I saw that had that tool. And for that reason, like I was just hooked. And Yahoo was also perfect for me because like, there's only so many of my friends that are willing to play in leagues, but Yahoo like was the first one I found that had the public leagues where I could, pay $100 and it would put me in a league with 9 other people that all played the same buy-in, and they would have a payout at the end. So like finding like ways to like get entered into like whatever buy-in that I wanted to in the type of league, plus having that special little button to show me what players were available in what leagues, which saved me hours of time. I think that I'm biased with Yahoo, but I play on Sleeper, I play on ESPN, I play on RTS, I play on MFL for Scott Fishbowl. So I play a little bit of everything, and I would like to consolidate it. But I think Yahoo has my heart. It took the early lead, and it's one of those things that will always hold a sentimental place for me.
Yeah, it's I was invited to a league with, it was Andy Behrens and Pat Fitzmaurice and John Daigle and all them guys, and I totally forgot that Andy Behrens is a Yahoo guy, and so I'm like, I got there, I'm like, oh fuck, this is going to be on Yahoo this year. Like I can't stand Yahoo. It's one of those things, like if you started out with an Android, you're an Android guy, and if you start out with an iPhone, you're an iPhone guy. And I started out with ESPN, so like I said, that I think Sleeper is like a ESPN on steroids, so it's kind of an easy transition to get from ESPN to Sleeper. But
Yeah.
Yahoo is just hard to navigate if you're not familiar with it. Let's say it's
Agree.
not as bad as MFL, but it's if you're new to it, it's kind of one of those things where it takes a while. Last time I was in Mike Tagliere had his home league. It was on there. Everybody did it. Everybody's on, and I'd be like, "Come on, dude, switch to ESPN. Come on, dude." He's like, "No." So I didn't have a choice. I had no say in the fight. It was his league, So it is what it is. But JT, what's your
John,
favorite?
I was gonna say, I think that's one of the things me and you always agree about is I'm not a Yahoo guy either. My biggest problem with Yahoo is I just always have problems getting into my Yahoo leagues. Like for some reason, it's like it hates me and I can never log in, and it always is blocking me. And I always have problems whenever I do my auction draft every year. So I've pushed to get all my leagues to Sleeper, but Sleeper adding that Yahoo Fantasy where you can click and see what you have in what league and if he's available in other leagues is a monster. I wish every league would add that feature. Sleeper, since they added that, was huge because now if you're looking for a guy, you can see right away whether he's worth going in and clicking and putting in a waiver wire ad or something because if he's on there or if you want to trade for him, it's so much easier that way. But yeah, I love that feature. I didn't even realize Yahoo had that feature first, but I love that feature on Sleeper this year. So Sleeper is probably, I think, the easiest one to go about. For me, I play with so many guys that don't get on a computer every day. So Sleeper is the easiest one to keep them all, contacted. You don't have to have a separate, league page where you all talk about and have comments on GroupMe or something like that because it's all on the Sleeper page. So Sleeper, I think, is the easiest. I'm like you, old school ESPN guy. My home league's been on ESPN for 15 years, 20 years. So we have a lot of ESPN leagues still, but MFL, my big leagues are on that because you can do so many different things as far as scoring systems. But yeah, I've definitely become a Sleeper guy over the last couple of years and try to convince as many of my Yahoo and ESPN leagues to switch to Sleeper as I can.
Yeah, I just joined this league called Trade Gods. It's those guys started a new like a 14 teamer, but every one of my leagues has been 12 teams, 30, 35 man rosters. So I noticed they did that on Sleeper. I was looking up somebody and I saw that it shows all my leagues on there, where I own them at. So when you have 12 teams or 14 leagues with 30 guys, just offensive players, no kickers, no defense, no, that kind of stuff. I was like, holy cow, this is cool. I don't own him in, the Brainiacs, or I don't own him in, the Bavaro League or whatever the league is. I thought it was a huge, I never knew that Yahoo did that, but I'm so glad that Sleeper added that now. So it's great that you mentioned that, Alex, because that's super cool. But like you said, all my buddies are cops or firemen or like myself in construction. Like we're not around computers all day long. MFL is awesome if you're sitting at a desk with a computer. The sites there would be no such thing as Sleeper for me if I worked at a desk. And MFL would be my go-to for the settings as a commissioner, first of all, and how easy it is on the website. But on the app, it's a whole different story. So let's see.
Yeah, that's the number one complaint I hear if you get on Twitter. It's like everyone just goes ballistic because they hate MFL's app, which I just can't believe that they can't fix that app at some point. But it's like they just refuse to do any update on that app. But yeah, man, their app is brutal. If they could fix that up, it would help. At this point, I barely even use the app unless I'm setting a lineup only. After that, I have to pull up internet pages on my phone or on my computer to use it. So yeah, if they could make that a little more user friendly, I think they'd have a few more people in their corner.
So we're talking about fantasy football here, but Alex, if you had one favorite player that you root for? Mine would be Antonio Gibson right now, like somebody that you really like. But you also have your favorite fantasy guy who's winning your leagues. Like Jamal Charles back in the day, or some people like Alvin Kamara because they won him 4 or 5 championships when he scored and went nuts a couple years ago. Like, what's your favorite fantasy player and what's your favorite real life player to root for?
That's a good question. If I can, I will say 2 players for the players that I root for in fantasy football. One of them is Jalen Hurts. Since like he took over as a starter last year, I think I talked about him probably the second most on my podcast. And I took so much crap that like Jalen Hurts was like the worst player ever. So just like seeing him thrive obviously makes me really happy. The other one over my shoulder is DeAndre Swift. He has not come through. I've probably talked about him more than any other player on my podcast at this point over the last 2 years. Every, advanced statistical metric points to DeAndre Swift breaking out at some point. Seems like health is the only thing that is truly holding him back at this point. But, it made me have a love for the Lions, and I enjoy like watching him play. I enjoy watching the knee biting and Dan Campbell and players like that. So I think that Hurts and Swift are definitely my guys, but Swift would probably be my overall number one that I really want to see do well, at some point in fantasy football. As for real life, I'm from Boston. I grew up a Patriots fan. So for me, it's Tom Brady. He is now retired, which does make things a little bit more complicated in terms of who I am going to root for. But I mean, to me at that point, I think that, I'm biased and with my podcast and things like that. But I think the guy that I'm probably going to be rooting for the most is Trey Lance. He's another guy that I've talked about a lot on my podcast. And I think that he's taken more crap as like a top 3 pick more than anybody. I'm not sure exactly what he's going to do in the NFL, but I'm really rooting hard for him in real life just to see him kind of break through and, hopefully shut up all the naysayers that don't believe in him like a lot of people don't. But to me, with all the chaos that's gone for the 49ers, I would love to see Trey Lance do really well this year.
Yeah, DeAndre Swift is a favorite of mine too, and Hurts is someone that, I was always in his corner rooting for him, and to see him performing the way level he is now, it's fantastic. And a lot of my teams, I have Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Trevor Lawrence, all as my 3 quarterbacks in my Superflex leagues. I make sure that I start my team with a foundation with good young quarterbacks in every league, and I had to pay tons to get these guys on a lot of my leagues. But now I'm happy. Now I have 27 or 32 more spots that I get to fill for just running backs, receivers, and tight ends. So my tight end, I think my quarterback situation, even if somebody goes down, is pretty much solidified for like the next 10 years. The way I look at it on my dynasty team. So just having that peace of mind on your leagues, I think is super important. So I'm trying to get Hurts, but I like right now people are asking for Trevor Lawrence and 2 firsts to get Jalen Hurts, and I'm like, dude, I'm not giving that up. Like, he's first of all, he's my 3rd quarterback, and second of all, I think they're pretty comparable on a tier level. So it ain't gonna happen. But JT, who's your 2 guys?
Oh, in the past, my favorite all-time players were Marvin Harrison and Marshall Faulk. So San Diego State, Syracuse, followed those guys, and then anytime I was the king of early fantasy football redraft leagues where I took Marvin Harrison in the 1st round every year while everyone else was taking running backs, and they're looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, hey, he doesn't get points unless he gets 100 yards, and Marvin Harrison is going to get 100 yards. So I just was always taking Marvin Harrison every year, no matter what. And then when they started adding the PPR aspect in fantasy, I was all over Marshall Faulk as one of the early guys that caught a lot of passes. So those were 2 of my all-time favorites that I loved early fantasy days. Also just 2 of my all-time favorite players ever. So love those guys. Marvin Harrison Jr. is my new guy. His son at Ohio State, I'm grabbing him in every Devy league, every draft I can get a 2024 first. I'm trying to get it just in case I have a shot to get Marvin Harrison Jr. So he's one of my new guys I'm rooting for. And out of no reason at all, I really like Trevor Lawrence. For some reason everybody was all over him, then they weren't on him, and for some reason I felt like I was like one of the last guys standing in his corner, still liking him and thought he had a lot of upside. So I know me and you, John, are both on Trevor Lawrence. So I was making every trade I could possible last year trying to get Trevor Lawrence in a lot of leagues for some crazy reason. No good reason why. I just think because I liked him and everybody else hated him that I started kind of rooting for him. So he's one of the guys that I kind of root for these days. And Jonathan Taylor, Colts. I'm a Colts season ticket holder. So JT, I'm a JT. He's a JT. So he's my new favorite player, Jonathan Taylor. And then George Pickens. I have a crazy George Pickens love on the Steelers. So I've been trying to get him everywhere. Those are probably JT and George Pickens are my two new guys that in real life and in fantasy that I love over the top.
I was in Indio, California, watching the playoff game where Trevor Lawrence had 4 interceptions, and it was 100% nothing but powder blue Chargers uniforms, and everybody's going nuts and drinking beers and you toasted and this and that. And I was a Trevor Lawrence fan. He's on every one of my fantasy, pretty much every one of my dynasty teams. And I'm listening to them go, and every time you do something good, I'd clap, and everybody look at me and give me the finger, be like, "Dude, just look, here's your guy now. Look at this." And then they came back in the second half, and I didn't hear a fucking peep from anybody. So it was absolutely awesome to watch the comeback and all this shit. I didn't want to get my ass whooped with my family around me, so I didn't say shit, But I'm like, I just clapped real loud, and everybody would, go fucking pound sand, buddy. Like that was that was the reaction I got, but. It was a great game to watch. We had nothing to do with it. The game was over with. My daughter's game. And we just had a team dinner, and that game was, thank God, on the TV in the bar we were at. So it was, I got to experience that with a bunch of Chargers fans. It was a fantastic day in the life of John McGlynn. So fantastic. So, commissioner questions, Alex. How many? Did you get a chance to look over those 2023 Mighty McGlynn home league rules I sent you a couple weeks ago or a week ago or something? Did you look at those yet?
Oh, sorry. I did look them over. I can't say that I remember a ton, but I just remember looking through, and that was probably the most complex fantasy football league I've ever laid my eyes upon. The leagues that I play in are pretty much as simple as like whether it's Sleeper or ESPN. It's like default scoring with like a couple like little tweaks about different seeding and things like that. But that had to be the most like badass, like complex, like fantasy football league rules that I've ever seen in my life. But it was one of those things that made me appreciate the sport, dare I say, that we play, year in and year out, that there actually are people that like are, going to go to a draft lottery, like you talked about earlier in the show, and on a Sunday and do like the balls and have a real life draft lottery. I think that makes the sport so much more fun. And I wish I had time to do things like that. But I think that really, looking over those rules really spoke to just like how awesome fantasy football is. And like those kind of leagues, I think, have to be the coolest things in the world. But my, tiny brain, I don't think could handle, Article 17 of the Mighty McGlynn rules. So like, I just don't even know, but I absolutely love it.
Yeah. Well, there's been a lot of years of people quitting leagues or people, having all off-season arguments about stuff. So those rules are a combination of like probably 25 years of fighting with my friends and family and co-league members and stuff like that. So those leagues have been documented of situations that happened over the years that I've experienced myself and then made adjustments of like, hey, before this league starts, read the rules, because if this happens, this is what's going to happen. In Article 9, Section 7, Row 8, this says this, or when your money's due, or how much trades cost, or whatever else. Every league specific, but how the rookie lottery works, all that kind of stuff. So it is nice to have those laws on record before the league starts, and it's come with a lot of pain and suffering. And, sometimes loss of friendships that, they have rekindled since then. But there's been a lot of fighting over stupid rules in fantasy football that got to the point of me having a 18, 19, section, 19 article bylaw rules because of it. So I feel like I'm helping some people out by publishing that or sending it out to whoever needs a rules thing. Every time somebody asks them, I send it out because I don't want someone to have to go through the hardships I went through that got to the point of that document, So I feel like it's a little bit of a constitution for fantasy football for that kind of stuff. So I appreciate you looking through them. And if it helps anybody out, then I'll send them out and just ask me, message me, whatever, I'll send them to whoever needs them. So
Yeah, John, I always love your rules on there. Looking through those things as someone who's ran fantasy leagues for 15 years or more, I always think you don't think about a lot of that stuff in the beginning when you start these leagues, and then you get the years, stuff keeps going, happening, this, that, and you're like, oh, I need to remember to put those things down so that if this ever comes up again, we don't have a huge fight and people quitting the league over this or that. And I always think that's one of those things as being a commissioner of a league. Sometimes you just think, hey, I'm just kind of running the league. But then you realize over time how much time and effort it really takes. And the real good ones, the ones that, are able to keep the league together, able to make executive decisions, things that you need to do to help a league. Because I've been in leagues with bad commissioners, and man, it's a nightmare. It feels like people are quitting left and right, and someone's always in a fight. So I think the more you can get rid of that stuff in the beginning, it always helps leagues last a whole lot longer.
Kevin Coleman and myself and a handful of other people were talking about getting a nationwide league together with like one person from 12 states, like one person representing each state, like one from, Boston, or one from, Connecticut, or maybe from Illinois, getting a United States home league together. So that every year, like in my leagues, whoever wins the league gets to pick the draft location. So if you win, you would be in Boston, or it would be in Chicago, or it would be in New York, or whatever else like that, So it's one of those things where if that ever gets off the ground, if I can get 12 people to join that across the United States, I'd love to do that, because my kids are grown now. I could travel. I'm not attached to nothing. My wife's super awesome about me doing all this fantasy football stuff. So, I finally got the money. The kids are gone. That's kind of stuff. So it's one of those deals. Toronto Dave, I saw you're starting up a league in Detroit at the draft next year. That's super cool. I like the home league stuff like that. The get-togethers. But Toronto's not too far from Detroit, a couple hours. So good. What would you, Alex? Would you like if I started a United States league with like 12 states? So that's something that would even interest like someone like you, or is that like, oh, I don't have time for that, or that's too much of a hassle? Like getting that off the ground, does that seem like a good idea, or is that something you like destined to fail kind of thing in your mind? Like,
I think it's one of those things that it just depends like what you have going on in that time. Because like if I didn't have like actually right now would be the perfect time where like you'd be more like I'd be more willing to say yes to something like that, because I don't have like all these like millions of redraft leagues that are on my back. But I think it just depends on the person and their time commitments with what they have going on. But I love like that's the the tough thing about fantasy football, as as someone that creates content, there's always people approaching you about different charity leagues or different ideas of wacky formats and doing this or doing that, and they're always for great causes, and they always have really, really great ideas, like the States League that you just talked about. But it's one of those things that like we only have so much time in a day, and there's so many things that come up, and it's hard for me to say yes to those, because like there's always people hitting my DMs for stuff like that, or I have this going on or that going on, and it's hard to commit to stuff like that. But I think in principle, it's a great idea. It's just a matter of finding the right people for it that are going to be committed. And I think finding those people that can be committed to those kind of leagues is probably the hardest thing. And I'm so jealous that you have those leagues that are full of just like committed people that you can rely on year after year.
well, that's I tell people all the time to like put your location on your Twitter timeline,
Yeah.
because that's how all of my home leagues. That's how I found Nick Script. That's how I found there's whatever 8 leagues full of people that are from the area, but like Steven Johnson or Scott Sidlow or Pewin, anybody like Justin himself, like my co-host, I found him on just guys who are local around my area. And I'm like, hey, I'm starting up a fantasy league. Would you want to join in? Guys who create content, guys who make, Instaface stuff, and, like all kind of like TikToks and, like Twitter stuff around shows, James the Brain, Catullus, all these guys were they're just awesome teammates. They're guys I know. The problem is a lot of those guys who are that, entrenched in fantasy football are already in like 25 leagues. That's the problem. They're so far down the rabbit hole now that time is more of a concern than it is actually having fun. So yeah, that's I get it. If you're doing this, I know how much time I would sit in Mike Taglia's basement watching football, and as soon as the noon games are over with, he would start writing his primer, his 40,000 word primer every week, and he would start writing it. And he'd watch the games, and like he had like I think he had 5 TVs, and it would be this game, that game, this game, and a red zone in the middle, and we'd be watching the stuff, having some drinks. But he would just start like he couldn't go out anywhere. He couldn't leave his house on Sundays. He had, and Monday through Friday, he couldn't go out until 6 o'clock because he had 3 podcasts and this show, and he had to write these articles. And he didn't just write a 40,000 word primer. He had probably 20 shows a week to do, with writing articles about each individual player, with writing about every individual human being that played in the NFL on his primer every week. I don't know how the guy found the time to do it, but he's a lot like, I say it all the time, he's a lot like Nick Scripp is. Like, Nick wakes up in the morning, he gets up, puts his shoes on, goes to the gym, and he makes a TikTok about him getting buff, and all this stuff. And then he comes home and he writes a paper or does whatever, goes to work. He does some kind of a board session or something like that. But every minute of his day is accounted for. Every minute of my day is sitting at, watching Netflix with my kids, or, some stupid shit like that, or, making lunch, or going to the bar, or, doing fancy football stuff. I don't have it takes a special person, like yourself, like Nick, like Mike, like guys who are bam, 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 bam. Just, it's on a clock, and you're moving and you're making content. You're doing it. I'm super happy for you guys that you had that drill and that drive and that will to make everybody else a better fantasy football player by all of your content. So, I applaud you guys for doing that. It's not in me. I'm not that guy, but I'm just happy that you guys do that to set an example for a lot of people who are trying to get in the industry to see what it takes to be that guy. So I love seeing you guys. I love seeing your new follower level. I love seeing your new, the new shows and new places. You're getting hired by these guys. That makes me so happy that the fruits of your labor are paying off for you. Yeah, I'm so excited about that for you guys, man.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's one of those things that's tough, but I think the toughest balance, I think, is times like now, because I think that in July and August, if you can be locked in on content more than anybody else, that's where your following is going to grow. I mean, I was writing Twitter threads every day in July and August because I knew those were going to be the 2 most critical months of the year. But I think the time where I have the toughest time is right now. Yeah. Where posting fantasy content is not really going to gain you, many extra followers. It's not going to get you a ton of new YouTube subscribers for someone like myself that makes a lot of redraft content, dynasty creators, of course. But right now it's tough because there isn't as much going on, and there's not a lot of new news when free agency and trading hasn't happened, and we're just kind of waiting for the Super Bowl to be over. But these are the toughest times, I think, as a content creator to kind of figure out should I be doing something, or is this your time to kind of rest, stay low, recharge, regroup, and kind of look everything over? Because that was January for me, where it was looking through all my old threads, all my old videos, what videos did well, what threads, what things went well, and what didn't go well, and trying to at least keep an agenda while the season is still kind of wrapping up, of what did and didn't go well, so that when I come back, kind of full throttle come June and July, that I'll have at least a little bit of a rough draft of knowing some things that I can at least start with to learn from the previous year. But I think those are the tough things, is what do you do in February? When you've done your wrapping up, you've done all the content stuff, and NFL content is coming, especially for the people that do this as a full-time job and stuff like that. I think this is definitely a weird time for content creators in the fantasy space, at least.
What I do in February is I run rookie drafts and sit at the bar with my buddies and have a great time. That's, I make a lot of fun of it. So when you have your draft lottery, when you have these, do you have any draft lotteries, or do you award 113 or 213 for winning the draft, winning the toilet bowl kind of bracket, stuff like that in your leagues, or no?
Yeah, I actually don't think I've played in any leagues that do that. We don't have any draft lotteries. The only thing that we do usually in dynasty leagues is we just go by max points for, and whoever has the least max points for, the worst record, that's usually what we go with. So we're tanking is a little bit more acceptable in some leagues like that, where we don't have the balls determining it, because people don't have as much time to be able to do that, for us at least. But we don't have any draft lottery, and I love the idea of the 113 things like that, adding an extra pick at the round, but I've never experimented with that.
It's fun because it keeps everybody, even in the toilet bowl bracket, it makes people trade for more picks and more play. It keeps people, they want to score the least amount of points, but they want their team to be good for the future at the same time. Yeah. Now you're getting an extra pick to boost your team. It's getting, if you get to 113 and you traded for 3 picks and you won 101 on the draft lottery, and then you're in a lot, you get one, yesterday, somebody had traded for 3 picks in our toilet bowl. You got 101, 102, and 104. So they're right there. And then he won the toilet bowl also. So now he has 113 also. So he's got 4 first round picks to start his new team up. But he was in an actual kind of a tank situation, but also trading. He's got a lot of young players. The guys he drafted last year that really kind of didn't pan out so far. But now his future is very bright with what's coming down the pipeline. And he's probably going to trade away the 101. He's already said, hey, come get it. That kind of stuff. So if he can get 3 or 4 first round picks next year on top of the 4 he already has, he may have the entire first round next year. That kind of stuff. Yeah. So it's all how you want to play. Are you in your leagues? Do you have any like trade deadlines, or is it like I understand we put a cap on our moves the week after the Super Bowl. We stop all I stopped the waiver wire because people want the offseason. They want to play fantasy hockey. They want to play fantasy basketball. They want to do stuff with their wife for the first time in 19 weeks. That kind of stuff. But do you have a trade deadline, or do you stop the transactions kind of thing in the offseason?
Yeah, I think we have a trade deadline in most of the leagues I play in for Dynasty around week 15, like right as the playoffs are starting is when the trade deadline does. So teams can't be just picking off, whoever's going to get the 1.01 for like any talent they have to try to win a championship. And then the waiver wire ends like right after the season is over. So after like the final championship week, we turn off the waiver wire until about the draft so people can get some time off. We activate trading again right after the Super Bowl, so people can still be making some moves and things like that. But as far as like waiver wire and having to stay up to date, every single day, we definitely give people a little bit of time off to do whatever they got to do. And then, come draft season and around when all that stuff happens, that's when everything starts to get back up and running. It sounds like similar to what you guys do.
Yeah, the Wednesday after the Super Bowl is when I shut down waiver wire stuff. But trading is around 3. You can trade on Christmas morning if you want to. You can trade on Easter when you're taking a picture with the Easter Bunny. You get all year round. You can do whatever you want to. JT, what about yours? Do you shut your stuff off?
Yeah, I'm in a few leagues that people are like, hey, trades all the way through. And I can understand loving that because you can get good value with people trying to win a championship. But I've also had a lot of problems with people making a million moves to try to win and then either bailing on the league or having like just major issues with people because their teams are just crap after that. So in my leagues that I run, I always stop trades before the playoffs start. So I always let people trade up to the playoffs, but the week before the playoffs start, then I cut trades because I'm like, hey, I've been in leagues where teams sneak in and then they make a million moves to try to win it, and then their team ends up being terrible, and it causes all kinds of issues. So I usually stop trading right before the playoffs. Same way with waiver wires. Guys want to break in most of my leagues, so I usually stop waivers the second season. As soon as our championship, the week of the championship's over, we usually stop waivers, and I'll run like 1 or 2 waiver periods in the summer. I'll do like 1 in July and 1 in like August, where people can kind of try to jump on board and do something there. And then we'll kind of open it up fully. Like usually I open up fully a week before the season starts, once we cut down lineups. Cause I like to add a couple lineup spots, usually add about 10 in my leagues for the summer, just for guys to kind of be able to play with and make some moves. And then I cut it back down. We have a cut down date. And then from there, we open regular waivers. But I think it's good to give people a break, in Dynasty and stuff and keep people engaged. But I'm also full fan of the extra picks, doing stuff for the toilet bowl to keep people engaged, to keep people from just totally tanking or, forgetting about the season when their team's bad. So anything you can do to kind of add that extra element, I always am totally a fan of.
Yeah, it's like I said, most of my friends are cops and firemen and stuff like that, and it's a little easier. We leave trade deadlines on. There's no trade deadlines at all in my leagues because they're home leagues. Nobody's going anywhere. It's not like some guy from Venice, Greece left the league or something like that. You can't. Oh shit, I got to find someone. I know where this guy lives. He lives 2 blocks away from me. He's not leaving the league. That kind of stuff. So it's a little bit easier to have no trade deadlines when it's all home league kind of stuff. So that's a little different scenario, but. We're getting close to the hour mark here, so we've got a couple more questions to go real fast, and then settings in leagues. Let's go. Let's start with this. You guys can both chime in, say yes, no, maybe elaborate if you want to, but we're gonna fly through these real fast. Are you guys? We'll start with Alex. You go first, and then JT after. Are you a full PPR guy?
No, I'm a half PPR guy, honestly.
JT?
I play in both leagues, so use in my leagues I run. I do full PPR, but I'm in a lot of half PPR leagues as well.
Tight end premium, and how much if so?
I like 0.75, like tight end premium. I think it evens out the playing field at least for the back end tight ends.
JT?
Yeah, if I can get PPR extra for the tight ends, I do it just because they end up becoming a wasteland if you don't do something to make that position worthwhile.
Yeah, that's 0.75 is pretty good. I've seen as much as 2.5 bonus on top of that for in a full PPR league, a 2.5 bonus for tight end. So like the Kelsey and those guys and Andrews are absolutely. I mean, I got smoked by Andrews in that last game of the season when he had. He had like 19 catches, and every first down's a full 0.2 of every receiving first down. I just sit and watching this game, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me! Every time that, like, I think what's his name had Tyler Huntley had like 19 passes and 15 of them were to Kelsey for first downs. I'm like, I'm just watching my team just losing the championship because Kelsey has 9,462 points. I'm like, this is terrible, But that's why the guy picked, Andrews in the first round. That's why guys go so fast. Are you a point per carry guy or point? I got like so every 10 carries would be 1 point. You like that kind of stuff?
I have not done it. So I can't say it. I would say hate it. I think there's certain rules to do, certain rules to keep out. A carry rule, I think, is one I would keep out.
Yeah, but you got Derrick Henry or Nick Chubb, guys like that. Those guys who get 20, 25 carries a game. That now you got 3 or 4 points for those guys. So it's where some people have 0.5 for carry. And then you get Derrick Henry 26 carries a game. He's getting 13 points just for carrying the ball 30 times. It's one of the it's the same thing as having a wide receiver who gets 14 catches for 45 yards, no touchdowns, kind of thing like that. It's it is what it is. But JT?
Yeah, I don't do it in redraft, but in a couple of my dynasty leagues, I do a 0.25 just to kind of make those bell cow backs worth a little bit more value in the trading scheme of things and drafting. But only in my dynasty leagues, I don't do it in redraft.
One of my favorite rules here: special teams. Do you give points for kick and return touchdowns or kick and return yards? Alex?
I love the idea. I haven't done it in my leagues, but I absolutely love the idea getting the most random guys that should never be on a fantasy football roster on your roster to get some big kick return yards. Like I am all for that kind of thing at all times.
We had Antonio Brown back in the day, and he returned kicks and returned punts. And I remember one game he had a kick return and a punt return and 150 yards receiving with 2 receiving touchdowns. And it was like I think it was like a 62-point day or something like that from the scoring from back in the day, which was like nothing. It was crazy how it was to have a guy like that on your roster was like a cheat code. It was absolutely awesome. JT, what do you think about the special teams points?
Absolutely. I love special team points. I always talk about I had an IDP league where I had a Dory Jackson when he was a rookie and he was kicking, punt, returning. Oh, man, he damn near won me the league because he scored so many points being a kick and punt returner plus a defensive guy. I'm all about making those third wide receivers who get a couple punt kick return yards. I love it. I add that in all my leagues.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Three or like number 4 or number 5 receivers on teams who get special teams work. It's like a cheat code. Is that extra flex in deep leagues? It's fantastic. So, all right, real fast, go through a couple more. How much should passing touchdowns be worth? Mine are all 5 and 2, so it's 5 points for passing touchdown and 2 points for interception. What about you, Alex?
Yeah, I do 4 and -2, but I like 5 better. I think that's the way to do it. I don't think 4 evens things out enough.
Right, JT?
Yeah, I'm in a lot of 6 touchdown -2 leagues, and the quarterbacks score through the roof. They're obviously score way more than everyone else, so kind of it's uneven. So, but I'm in a lot that are 6 touchdown or 6 per TD, but I am in about half of mine are probably 4 per touchdown.
Yeah, bonuses for 100 and 200 yards rushing and receiving, stuff like that.
Love it.
Absolutely, I'm all about bonus yards. Some of them you can hybrid over 100 yards if you get rushing and receiving combined yards. I like that as a new little wrinkle for those guys who are kind of the third down backs. Anytime I can get bonus points for having a good game, no matter how you do it, I like it.
Yeah, I'm pissed. I keep telling Sleeper, like, hey, you need to add more tiers. Like MFL is awesome. Like, for instead of just if you get 99 yards, you get nothing. And if you get 100 yards, you get 6 points, or 4 points, whatever it is. I wish they would do like MFL for every rushing yard, you get like a point, 4 or a 0.2 or, 0.01 or whatever the deal may be. So you can get like tiered versions of how good you're doing on top of, just get like a bonus. Cause it's kind of like, it's like, great. My guy had 99 yards and I'm going to throw my phone through the wall. And then, and at 200 yards is worth 12 points in our league. It's 6 points for 100 yards and 200 yards is a 12-point bonus. So it's some people do it. And it's such a great, you should reflect what happens on an NFL field to your fantasy football league. It makes it more realistic, kind of more fun, to kind of parallel what they're doing on the field. So that's what extra scores.
I'm all about decimal scoring. The leagues that you can't do decimal
Same.
scoring, which drove me crazy for ESPN for years. You couldn't do decimal scoring. I'm all about decimal. I mean, 99 yards should be 9.9 points.
Yes,
That
absolutely,
kind of thing.
exactly.
And then you throw an extra 2 or 5 points once he gets 100. But yeah, I'm all about decimal scoring. I hate leagues that don't do decimal scoring. It drives me crazy.
Like bonuses, okay, both you guys, bonuses for like 400, 400, 300, 400, 500 passing yards. I wish Sleeper would fix that instead of just having 300 and 400, because I think 300 is kind of like the standard now for almost every quarterback in the NFL. There's 500-yard games. They don't have the option of get like points for 500-yard games. And then what about like long plays, like 20-yard passing touchdown or 60-yard rushing touchdowns? You should get extra points for bonuses too, or what do you think about that?
I love it. I'm all for extra bonuses in almost anything. Like I love extra points. I love extra bonuses. I love things just being as high scoring as possible and give people a chance to like get out of it, because their guy like Mark Andrews has 19 first downs. Like that could get you out of a hole in a league that you'd normally have no chance in. So I like it that similar like a March Madness style where anything can happen on any given Sunday with some of those extra bonuses. And I think that's why I really like those.
Yeah, JT loves bonuses too.
I'm all about big play bonuses. I put big play bonuses in all my leagues.
I absolutely love it. Yes. Do you still play, Alex? Do you still play with a kicker and a defense in your leagues, or no?
I have to in some of those Yahoo public leagues. Preferably, if I'm in a league we don't have defense and kicker, I would rather just extra flex spots at that point, or super flex or whatever it is. But I do play in. I have to do some defense and kicker research for some of those Yahoo leagues, but I don't mind it. People don't like doing the dirty work, getting their hands dirty. I think that's an advantage for me in those leagues. So I like kicker and defense in that aspect because I feel like I can take advantage of it more than the average person.
Well, I'm going to just say that when I set up my first dynasty league, I had kicker scoring where it was like, if you had 0 to 10 yards was, regular 3 points, and the 10 to 20 was 4, and 20 to 30 was 5, and, so on and so forth. Well, the first year of the league, the guy had Sebastian Janikowski, and he kicked like 655, like a 60-yard field goal. So Sebastian Janikowski had like 53 points by himself, and the people be like, what is this kicker scoring bullshit? Like, he scored more than both my quarterbacks combined, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, you know what? We're just going to get rid of this kicker thing because there's no way to make it And I go, yeah, but this guy's kicker got -3 on this week because he missed an extra point and a field goal. Like, you just got lucky. You should shut the hell up and be happy you got Janikowski on this team, But it doesn't happen all the time. But when guys go nuts, they go nuts. It is what it is. You should be rewarded for kicking 60-yard field goals, or 59-yard field goals, not punished, not just get 9 points, because that's all you get, the regular scoring offers. But it did create a stir up, as far as that goes. JT?
All my redrafts do kickers and defenses, but almost all my dynasty leagues have eliminated kicker and defense. I think I'm only in one dynasty league does kicker and defense. All my other ones, we all do IDP now, and I know John's an anti-IDP guy, but I do IDP in a lot of my main dynasty leagues if we do defense at all. If not, then we don't do any.
So auction rookie drafts. Are your rookie drafts snake linear, or do you do auction? Like I was talking about doing an auction for a rookie draft where like I had put like a certain number on there, and then a couple other people had commented how they do their auction rookie drafts. Where number 101, if your team the max points for was in a 101 position, you would get like $350, and then like the 512, whoever had the 512 was worth like $1.50 or something like that. So it tiered down how much, but you could actually trade with player 4 and 5 or 5 and 6 and get more money than a 101 to bid up and get like the 101 pick instead of just getting picks. It's a much better situation. It adds another complication level to rookie drafts, which I think is absolutely awesome. I would be so pissed if I tanked on purpose and had that much money and some jagoff traded and got, just outbid me on this money. Now everybody else knows if they don't like you or they're trying to get away from it, like they would never really trade any fab money with you, or you could trade picks, next year for fab money, or money to outbid everybody else too. It's such a great like extra scenario in rookie drafts when all that stuff's going on too. What do you think about that?
I love it. And anything that adds new wrinkles, complications, or anything to make the league more fun or competitive or add just different wrinkles, like I am all for. Again, the time thing is a little bit tougher, but if someone else is willing to set up those wrinkles, like I'm all for them.
JT, what do you think about
Yeah, I've never done that tiered auction approach, but I think it's a really cool idea. I try to do whatever I can in my leagues that I run to prevent just full out tanking. So I always do some kind of thing where you've got to at least stay competitive in order to get that 1-1 pick. It's not just totally given to you, but that's usually in only leagues that I run. All my other leagues, a lot of times they just do total points for, maximum points for is how they determine that.
Yeah. Alex, listen, man, I just noticed now that we're at the 11:15 mark, so we'll do a second show on this or something like that. But you're a busy guy, you got all kind of stuff going on. I'm sorry to run a little late here, or max you out on your time, but just thanks for being on today. I'll try to have a second part of this, and you go over more in the off season if you're interested in coming back on. I really appreciate it. But tell everybody about yourself, where they can find you yet again, all that kind of stuff.
The biggest two places you can find me on Twitter at Alex Caruso or on TikTok at Alex Caruso NFL. John, I appreciate you having me. I'm happy to come on again. It was great to talk to you guys today. I had a blast getting to know you in Canton. It was great to come back on the show today. So I really appreciate you having me, and I really appreciate your time. This is a blast.
Free beer in Canton for being on the show. So I'll owe you one free beer in Canton for being on the show. So when I see you, the next beer's on me. All right, buddy?
Sounds good. I appreciate it.
Where can everybody find you on the Twitter machine?
Yeah, you can find me at JT Orange on Twitter. I'm in a bunch of Discord pages, so you always look me up. I'm usually JT Orange or JT Orange 4 in those if you're sending stuff out. But hit me up on any kind of content, Devi, IDP. I do everything. So if any kind of league I'm in, I guarantee I'm in one of them that are similar to yours. So.
Toronto Dave, thanks for being on the show today. You can find Toronto Dave on the Twitter machine. He's super active. You can find him on almost everybody's show. He's on everywhere. He's a great supporter of everybody's work in the Fantasy Football League, in Fantasy Football universe. So, Dave, thanks for being part of my show. Thanks for being part of my life. And I'm John McGlynn. You can find me on the Twitter machine at John McGlynn75. So, thanks, everybody. And here's my awesome Herms song on the way out.
McGlynn is in. I repeat, McGlynn is in. Let the fun begin. This is the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with your host, John McGlynn.
Is that Herms?
He got them guests on the Rolodex, stopping by to talk about some dynasty superflex. Everybody, commish is in. It's time to sit down to listen to John McGlynn. Yo, who we trading, who we fading, who we getting off the squad. Knowledge never overrated, playing for number one. And yo, McGlynn is in. It's time to let the fun begin. It's the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with John McGlynn.
That's never going to get old, I don't think.
The best intro I've ever heard.
Thank you very much. All right, guys. See you later.
All right. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.